Welcome to this morning's lecture about cars. We're going to be talking about different ways or different parts of cars. My name is Juhani. I'm one of the people who runs the Snapp Automotive as well as Snapp Mobile. And here's my colleague.
Yep. Hi. Nice to have you here. My name is Pierre, and I'm a product designer, also working with Juhani at Snapp.
So let's just dive in. Talking about cars. This doesn't work. Okay, now it works. Oh, do I need to be nearby? I need to be one. So this is not the only incarnation of this talk. There's going to be the same one in DroidCon with different variation by Al, who's a wizard about. Oh, we lost the slides fully. Yeah. Okay. Al, who's a wizard about and AOSP development and all of that stuff. So he's going to be talking much more in detail about AOSP and building all of that stuff. We're going to be talking a little bit less from that side. The slides are, yeah. Okay, so developing for cars. It's very different from developing for these guys. We use our phones just a couple of years, we throw them out, we buy a new one. Cars last for a long time. Some cars last forever. Some cars, people use them at least 5 years, maybe longer. The development cycles are long. Building for cars, you don't just build for one screen, you just not build for one system. There's many, many different things going on in the car. And when things go wrong, it's not just, you lose your email. Things go really badly wrong. The development cycles are hugely long because the specs are long. There's ISO standards that you have to follow. This 100,000-page specification is not exaggeration, it's real. That's what car companies do when they specify their systems. It's very specialized. There's a lot of things going on. There's a lot of subsystems. There's a lot of things being connected. You have to test very carefully everything. That all creates a huge life cycles and huge cycles of development. That might be the software you have in the car right now might have been started 10 years ago, at least 5 years ago. But right now, it's quite an interesting area. What is happening now is like 2010 in mobile phones. There's new systems coming online, new companies coming in all the time. This car here is Foxcom's car that was announced this month, this week actually. Foxcom is the company that makes iPhones. They're going to make cars. They announced a sports car, a normal car, and a bus. The other car here is 2024, coming from Xiaomi. They're going to make their car, and they're not going to be the only ones. Now, Android in cars is not actually a very new thing. Some of you might have driven a car that runs Android without knowing it does. If you have an old Renault, it probably runs an Android system based on Android 4. But you never knew it is. It's fully hidden. There's also a really big market for aftermarket kits. So this is a picture of a BMW aftermarket system where you can put a full Android system there and just use it as a phone. But these are all, the past is always taking the mobile phone operating system and putting that in the car. But now things are getting interesting. Things are changing. There's a specialized version of systems that run in the car. Now, Google is not best on branding. So there's massive confusion what is what. So before we start, let me explain what we are talking about today. A month ago, there was a big announcement that Google said, oh, we're going to kill Android Auto. And all the tech blogs went like, OK, Auto is killed by Google, whatever, again. And what they actually meant, they killed Android Auto on the phone. So they had this version of the Android Auto that you can run on your dashboard, and they replaced it with Google Assistant mode. So if you don't have an infotainment system at all, you can still run your Android automotive Android type of system on your car by just putting your phone on the dashboard. And it's now assistant driving mode. So it's meant to be used while driving. We're not going to be talking about that at all today. That's not interesting to us today. The other two systems that are fully confused is Android Auto and Android Automotive OS. Google has a lot of documentation on all of those things. I put the slide here just so you have the URL. The slide will be shared afterwards. So what is Android Auto? Android Auto is a system that runs on your phone and just renders it on the car. There's nothing on the car, well, there's a little bit, but there's very little on the car that actually runs on your system. It's projected mode. I think projected mode is the easier way. The Apple counterpart is CarPlay. CarPlay, Android Auto is very similar things. So it's on your phone, it's just displaying on your car. But Google is not the only company doing these things. Xiaomi, and this is Huawei HiCar, that is just a very similar thing. The more interesting system, what is coming up now, is Android Automotive OS. This is an embedded system. This is running in the car. You don't need your phone at all. You have full Android. It effectively turns your car into an Android smartphone. And this is where we're going to be focusing. We're going to be talking about, from design side, we're going to be talking both of the systems because they're very similar, but mostly we're going to be talking about Android Automotive OS today. So what is the difference between Android Automotive OS and Android on your phone? Not much. It's almost the same code base. When you check out the code, it's pretty much the same thing. What happens there is that some of the system apps are removed, and some other system apps are put in. They also put a car APIs library in it there that's available for you. And they put the vehicle-specific hardware abstraction layer there. But that's pretty much it. So everything about car, or what you know about AOSP, actually applies in the car development. But in the car, our system, what we're talking about today, we just talk about the infotainment system. It's a very small part of the car. It's sitting on top of the car hardware. It's the RTOS, real-time operating system, is the system that takes care of the car systems. So the infotainment system we have, the Android Automotive OS, it doesn't actually deal with any of the car systems. So you cannot write an app that makes the brakes not work. It simply doesn't have access to those things. It just deals with the infotainment, playing music and so on. To make things even more complicated, Android Automotive OS, there's 2 different versions, actually many more than 2 versions. There's the same split that is on mobile. You have Google Android, and then you have AOSP Android based, and somebody else doing this. The easiest way to understand this is think about the Google Android version is like the one you probably have on your phone, and the other ones are like Huawei system, or just AOSP built. And GAS stands for Google Automotive Services. So a company who goes with Google, they go enter in the business relationship with Google. They license GAS from Google. And this time, Google's been very successful getting partners. These are just a few of the car brands that have announced that they're gonna have Android. Either all of their cars is Google Android, or some of them. Remains to be seen which ones. Now, when we talk about device skins and branding and so on the phones, we nerds, we always want to have the stock Android experience. That's the best one, right? What is the stock Android in automotive is very different. This is how the stock Android looks like. This is the one you download from Google. This is the emulator you run from on your device to develop your software on. And you will never see this in a car. This is just a development environment. Even if they're going to be pixel car, it's not going to run this one. Not that they're probably going to be one. So the things you're going to be seeing is highly customized UI. This is a Polestar launcher, for example. This is Google Android system. It's just very customized. This is another one. Renault announced a new one in IAA this year, which looks fantastic. That's also Google Android. Looks completely different. Then GM went full Marvel comic universe with their system, which actually, if you buy a ridiculous car like Hummer, this is the stuff you want to have in your car, right? This is also Google Android. This has Play Store. Your apps will run on this one. So that's the thing. Now, talking about your apps, how do you get your apps into cars, especially on Google system? Currently, and probably for foreseeable future, you can only build apps related on templates. So what Google provides you provides a template, and you fill in the template. As a user of one of those cars, I love that approach. As a developer, it's relief for me, because I don't have to worry about any of the safety. The reason Google is doing this is that they don't get sued when somebody is playing a game and they crash their car. So now we can just fill in things. Currently, there's such 3 types of templates available. Navigation apps, parking, charging applications, media applications, messaging applications. Android Automotive OS currently supports only media. The rest are coming, hopefully soon. When you create an application, media application, Android Automotive, the OEM is in charge how your application looks like. This is a Spotify application in Polestar. It has Polestar logos, it has everything else. The only thing that the Spotify people have defined is which icons they show and the logo. That's pretty much it. Okay, let's talk about design.
Cool, thanks. So yeah, we have been diving a little bit in the difference between Android Auto and Android Automotive OS. Now let's have a look a little bit at what it means and how does it look designing up for these 2 platforms. So if we start from the question why we actually have to consider extending our apps for the in-car experience, actually the market is not small anymore. So Google, for example, states that there are more than 100 million cars compatible with Android Auto on the road. It's supported by the major manufacturers. More manufacturers are coming along with the Android Automotive OS. From the user point of view, the experience for in-car apps is much better. If you have tried, for example, Google Maps on Android Auto, you can clearly see the difference between the mobile version and the auto version. And then, of course, like for developers, it's also easier once you publish apps for Android Auto, then they can be easily pushed to Android Automotive OS as well. But this comes with a few sets of constraints, of course. Juhani already mentioned a few. For us, basically, the first thing is like only if some apps are eligible or are allowed. Some categories, only a very few. There might be more in the future. There is a limited set of templates available again, and also from those templates, you always have to see which ones are available for which categories, so you can also not use them freely. There is a limited customization possible. So, for example, in general, from those templates, what you can actually do is changing the color for text, backgrounds, elements, and have custom icons, basically. And then, there are also constraints on the data that we can show in the in-car app, for example. While you might show a lot, tens, I don't know, hundreds point of interest on your mobile phone app, in the in-car experience, only 6, for example, location are allowed for these specific templates, for example. So let's have a look a little bit more at a real use case, an example. This is a project we have been working at for Elli. They are a mobility service provider focusing on charging services. That means that for EV drivers, you can basically look for station, subscribe to a specific charging tariff, go to station, charge there. So we were part of the team who developed the mobile app, and then eventually we also expanded it to the in-car experience. So how does the design process look like? So the first thing that you have to consider is like try to identify the key tasks that are relevant for driving. That means that you don't have to push all the features that you have on your mobile to the in-car experience, but actually try to understand which ones make sense. You might leave out some secondary tasks like onboarding, the subscription flow, login, account details, for example. After that, you define the user flow, you match them with the existing templates, and you customize where possible. So when it comes to define tasks and flows, the shorter the better. In the guidelines, usually it's stated that there shouldn't be more than 5 views in a row. For us, the kind of core use cases where search and navigate to charging station, see the connector and the price preview, and then eventually charge remotely at those stations. So when it comes to choosing the templates, we chose these 3 ones from the user flow, so the map view for seeing charging station nearby, then eventually the charging station detail, and then the connector details where you can see all the prices breakdown and perform remote charging action. And then, of course, when it comes to customization, there is not much you can actually do again. You can basically use your own markers, change some of the text colors to your brand colors, and use, for example, accent colors for buttons or your own icons. It's important, again, to be aware that not all the features are in the in-car app experience. So when it comes to specific features, it's fine to redirect to the phone. Like in this case, the price was kind of hidden behind the login wall. So it's fine to get this message, go to the phone, log in. Maybe you also have a better experience because you have the fingerprint and so on. And then once you have logged in, the features will appear on the car as well. So like every product development flow, testing is really important. Since you cannot just send the APK to your designer and they will test it on the phone, it's important to give your designer access to the emulator so they can click through, test the UI, see the real flows. But even more important, it's actually to test on the road. So only like that you can actually identify the corner cases, see how the real life experience really look like. And for example, for our use case, the Elli charging app, we realized that the remote charging was always not working. Sometimes the networks was not properly responding. Or for example, we realized that the filtering function, there were some core functionality missing. Like since you have only 6 locations shown, it's really important for users and drivers to drill down these results to their needs. For example, selecting charging speed or selecting availability and so on and so forth. So again, testing on the road is really important.
So this example was sent about Android Auto, so the projected mode app. And it's part of the Android Automotive OS talk. Why? It's same thing. So you build the applications only once, and you can put it on both platforms. However, as the Automotive OS is independent, you can't fall back on the phone for login, for example. So effectively, if you have an automotive application, auto projected mode application already, not putting it on the automotive is a bit, bad move. Just do it now, because you're going to have more and more people coming onto your platform, and you have it already there. You need to add a login screen, though, and you need to tweak the manifest file a little bit. Google has a good documentation about this. The login screens are just Wild West at the moment. There's no really guidelines. Here we see a good one and a bad one. You can guess which one is which. There's also a couple of applications which I think got pulled from the Play Store, which is very interesting, because Play Store has a very strict review guidelines for now for the actual content of the application. Like I said, you can only do template. But your login screen, you can do whatever you want. So there was a couple of applications that implemented on the login screen. For example, there was one app that had a piano on the login screen for no reason. It's no longer in the store. Anyways, that's your applications on the App Store, on the Play Store specifically. Now, there's much more than we can do on the automotive, but you have to be an OEM. OEMs can sidestep the Play Store requirements at the moment. So if you have an application you want to have in cars, you think it makes sense in cars, but doesn't fit to the templates thing, you need to contact the OEMs directly. So for example, this is a Polestar game that is on the Play Store, doesn't adhere any of the guidelines. But what it means that an OEM can say, okay, we take the responsibility of the safety, Google doesn't have to worry about it, and they can do whatever they want. So contact the OEMs. You have to contact them all separately. So for example, this one, or a better route planner charging application, in my car is distributed under Polestar account. So the developers had to copy the app the second time in the store. And then when they put it in a Volvo, it has to be copied again, and Hummer again, and so on. So it's a bit annoying. But OEMs can do whatever they want, right? So this is where kind of the kind of the app sit in the thing, because we need to show charts, otherwise we don't, look real. Anyways. So let's talk about the non-Google Android, which I think is much more interesting. There's going to be a lot of interesting development going on. Like we said at the beginning, it's like a Wild West, like at the start of Android. Everything is coming online. Everybody's doing their own thing. The Google-less is already announced in many cars, some of them small ones like this, and some of them not so small ones. Let's talk about designing for cars in general.
Good, thanks. Yeah, so if we are going to basically design and develop for the in-car experience, there are a few designing principles that we have to consider, no matter if we are designing for auto or automotive OS. So the first, of course, is like safety. It's the most important thing. Yeah, guidelines again states that driver should be able to quickly glance at the UI, understand the task, eventually take actions, and bring the attention back to the road within 2 seconds. So the UI has to support that sort of glancing behavior. That means that we need to have like larger touch targets, few elements in the layouts. The UI has to be clear, and actions, for example, have to be quick and intuitive. Of course, the system has to encourage hands-on driving. So one hand at least always has to stay on the steering wheel. So maximum one-hand interaction. And of course, when possible, we can use, for example, text-to-speech or playable messages. We have to try to minimize the distractions. So the system also has to provide that. Notification, of course, as few as possible. There are, I think, maximum 2 shown at the time. And we can be aware of the car state. That means that if the car is driving, for example, the system is aware of that, and then it can reduce the amount of UI elements on the screen. There are also a few visual patterns to be considered that differ a little bit from the mobile experience we are kind of used at. So because the content has to be glanceable, that means that generally all the elements are larger. Text sizes are much larger than mobile. I think it goes up to 56 SP. Then we have shorter text, readable easily. And the contrast plays a very important role because, of course, it has to support the different light conditions. Yeah, as I mentioned, like touch targets are a little bit bigger. We go up to 76 dp. And also the elements are a little bit more, are fewer and a little bit spread around, so there is no overlap between them. When it comes to navigation, this is quite important because some OEMs or old system used to have quite complex navigation in car. This has to be simplified. It needs to become more intuitive. So try again, like usual design principle we use on mobile, we are familiar with. Visible navigation, bottom bars, avoid hidden menus, for example. There is a good UX law, it's called the Hicks law. It states that basically the more options you have on the screens, the more it takes to user actually to react and to take action. So less element, clear navigation. This is a little bit better example from the Renault Megane. They used, again, familiar elements, like, for example, the bottom bar or tabs. And even though they have actually a lot of details view as well, they have a lot of function. I got the chance to try it at the IAA. It feels really intuitive. So I could always say where I was in the navigation stack and where I could and how I could basically get back to where I was. And when we talk about visual principle, again, there is the theming and the customization. So especially for Android Automotive OS, there is a lot you can do. You have a lot of flexibility. But still, we always have to take in consideration the principle we just mentioned for make sure the safety is ensured for the in-car experience.
All right.
Something
happened.
Oh,
We're back. So now the next layer of development is developing the actual system. So this is what the OEMs do. This is what the car manufacturers do to put this stuff in the car. Well, not this. Well, some of them do this as well. HDMI. Okay, let's not breathe. Okay. So some systems, some companies have really kind of elaborate. Okay.
Maybe you can come here.
I have to stand here, otherwise it doesn't work. Really elaborate systems to really develop in cars. Of course, sometimes you need these kind of things. This is the Qualcomm setup system. Qualcomm entered the car market recently as well. So this costs a bit money. Have to do. So what we're doing the plan B. We put the Android Automotive OS on a Samsung tablet. Or when I say we, Al did. And we can now drive around in the car. The testing it, like Pierre said, testing in real context is super important. Automotive is completely different. If you sit in a computer and play with the emulator, it's a completely different user experience than sitting in a car and actually trying to use the system. After the talk, if you want to see this thing, Alex has one with him. Anyways, building the system for cars, like I said, the cycles are really, really long. Polestar, the first one coming on the market, it runs this old Intel chip on the system. All of the cars, all the hardware is 5 years old. You won't be able to build for the latest and greatest things, but they're quite highly optimized because they run only on one hardware. So thinking about that. Safety is important. Like I showed in the earlier slide, your system, the infotainment system, runs on top of the safety critical, the real-time operating system. Most of them nowadays, they run virtualized or something like that in the car, but they have access to the car stuff. So there's Google documentation, a lot of these things. So you can access a lot of the car things. You can know the charge level, you can know speed, you can know all of these things. Some cars implement this, some cars don't. They can also implement more than these. So, of course, when you're building an AOSP for a car, you know which car you're building, and you can talk to the OEM what to do. For us as user, this looks very familiar. So when your app wants to access a car system, so not a system application, you get this pop-up saying, "Hey, do you want to let this?" I wish it would tell what it actually wants to read, but that may be coming later. In case the better route planner reads my charge level from the car. If you're an AOSP developer, it's very similar. AOSP development is AOSP development. It's just different packages you pull in. This is a part Al will be able to talk much more. I was pretending I know what I'm saying. These things mean something for AOSP developers. But actually, 90% of the work done on infotainment system is normal Android app development. What you are doing, you open Android Studio, you write app code, apps, you write APKs, you put into the distribution, and you put there. The screen that you see, it's a launcher. It's just a launcher. It works the same way as a phone launcher. I use an APK. Many of the system applications can be overlaid with other APKs. The less you have in the operating system, the easier the updates are, less you couple yourself there. If you are an OEM, what you can do, you can have promote the application, system applications, then you don't have the pop-up I showed earlier and so on. Do we have time? We have a bit time. There's other different systems. This real estate entertainment is something that's going to run mostly Android. Currently, Amazon is making a big play about it. They basically put Fire TVs in cars. A lot of cars are going to be running Fire TVs on the back seat. But they might not have a controller. They might be touchscreen driven. They might not have a control connection. It's a bit different environment anyways. But this is another part. We can talk about it. Now, we have 10 minutes. So my favorite part is to speculate about the future. I don't know any of this. This is all my guesswork. So you can call bullshit on this one. my bet is that the future setup of cars is going to be tablet on the dash or on the center console. That's going to be most of the cars are going to be touch only. They're going to lose all the controllers. They're going to be using Android in their center controls, Google with or without Google. Now, when I ever talk about touch, there's going to be 15 people who jump in, touches shit in the car. I don't want to be looking at the screen. It's not safe. It's horrible. I never want to have a car with that one. And I kind of agree with you. If your experience is one of those old school OEMs enabling touch in their system they designed for a controller, it's garbage. They shouldn't have done that. Touch is only good if the system is designed for touch, like Android. The experience of driving with touch is completely different. Give it a go before you judge the whole concept. The fact that touch UIs are very low hierarchies, they're very flat hierarchies. I get all of my tasks done in a stoplight. I don't have to look at the screen. I get everything done in my car in 2 seconds, what would take in a let's say BMW would take 15 seconds, and the slides is already changed. There's going to be a huge ecosystem battle. Cars not going to be dominated by Google. There's going to be a lot of Google, but it's not going to be the only player. Google Play is not going to be the only store. There's going to be huge fragmentation. Forcia is selling white label stores, for example. They announced that they're playing game with Volkswagen at the moment. I don't know exactly what they're doing there. They have a system where they sell the same store to multiple customers, and the customers style it. So you have a Volkswagen store or whatever store, and you will never know it's from them. So you will never see this one. Harman is also getting a store, and it's good to remember that Harman is owned by Samsung, so they have a little bit power behind them. Huawei is making a game. Amazon has announced that they're going to put a store in the cars, so we're going to have huge fragmentation. And it's unlikely that all of these players are going to use the Google's templates for the apps. So for us and app developers, we need to pick and choose which cars we want to be on, because it's going to be a lot of work to get stuff done. Let's see how it plays. Another battle that's going to happen in cars, and this is why Amazon is coming to play, Google Assistant is becoming dominant. So if you have Assistant in a car, it's likely you're going to use it on a phone, you're going to use it at home. If you have Alexa, you're going to use that one. So the voice assistant battle is going to happen. Like Pierre mentioned, voice in car is super important. If you have a good voice system, well, arguably, at least better than the traditional car systems, which these are, you're going to use it much more. And once you get used to it in your car, you're going to buy one at home. And that's why these players really want to be in your car. So let's see what's going to happen there. Now, talking about cars and not talking about these two would be strange. Tesla is a software company that happens to make cars. Their software is good. Their infotainment system, before Android was announced or released, was the best on the market. Now it's second best. They have no Android Auto or CarPlay. They have no intention to put that there. Their Maps is Google Maps. You can't log into Google account there. Apple, nobody knows. I think they like to spread rumors. It might or might not happen. But when they come, something is going to happen. There's another big change happening in the industry, not just the infotainment. The way cars are built is changed. Now that EVs are coming, and every new car is going to be hopefully EV very soon, companies like RE is going to sell any car manufacturer. And somebody wanting to make a car, they're happy to sell skateboard, basically. Their product is cornered. They sell a wheel with a motor attached to it. And then you can literally in their website stretch the platform the way you want. I want that one. And then you build the car on top of that one. Arrival is a UK company who's building this kind of microfactory approach. What they are doing, they are changing the way cars are built from that side. So basically, you no longer have to have gigafactories, you have microfactories. So you don't have to build 100,000 cars to break even, or 1 million cars to break even. You can build just few cars, like these guys are doing. There's a charge car in the UK. They're building 499 of these fantastic electric Mustangs. And they're probably going to make money out of it. Before, this wouldn't be possible. You can't build 500 cars and break even. all of these cars need to run infotainment system. What is going to be? Well, it's going to be Android, right? So let's see what's going to happen there. One thing to keep in mind when you talk about cars and so on, cars extend outside the car bubble. Well, what I want to say, I think the right thing to think about is that your phone is now extending to the car. I hate the idea what car manufacturers say, well, we own the customer and our car has a connected app that extends to your phone. Sorry, but that's not how the world works. Our world, digital world, revolves around our phones. Our phone extends to the car. Let's see where it's going to go. Lastly, there's a gaping hole in this whole thing. How do we as developer make money from this? Google Play doesn't have in-app purchases in car at the moment. Nobody has. So how do you monetize the effort you put in there? If you have a huge media company, which might be sponsoring this event, for example, you want to be in the car because your customers are using it anyways, so you add value to the customer, you raise above your competition. Fine, you might not have to make money from the car. But what if your main business is going to be in the car? You have to make money somehow. You can't play ads in traffic lights. So let's see what's going to happen in this area. We're pretty much out of time at the dot. We don't really have time for questions. But if you're interested to see the tablet we built and running it, come this corner after, and we will show it to you and talk to you. So thank you very much.
Thank you.